Hello, you're welcome to this class. We are going to be talking about something from a question that somebody asked in our WhatsApp group. That reminds me, I hope you know that we now have a WhatsApp group. I created one because of the Saturday lessons that we plan to start. We are going to be having a live interactive class tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the very first time that we'll be doing it. Okay, so while I asked questions about the topics that the people there would want us to treat, somebody said something about these active and passive voices. Okay, I decided to take it today. I decided to take it, but we are still going to treat it in the interactive class that we have tomorrow through Zoom app. If you have not gone there, you are always welcome to be in the WhatsApp group. Drop your questions there and interact with others. If there are questions that you would want me to attend to, it's closer to me there. It's closer to me when it is sent through the WhatsApp group. Okay, so somebody asked about these active and passive voices and what they mean. How do you know when something is in the active voice and when it is in the passive voice? When you talk about active and passive voice, you are talking about sentences. You are talking about verbs actually, but you cannot be talking about active and passive voice if you are not considering sentences. All right. You say that a sentence is in the active voice form when you find the subject of that sentence performing the action. If you remember when we treated the subject, when we treated subjects and objects, we talked about subject as a part of the sentence, as an element of the sentence that performs the action in that sentence, right? We talked about the object as the element of the sentence that receives the action. Some other persons will tell you that the subject of a sentence is that element or that part of a sentence that focus is on. That is, that sentence places focus, it focuses on that particular element. Now, that is about the subject. When you have the subject playing the role, when you have the subject performing the action in that sentence, that sentence is in the active voice form. Am I communicating? Whenever you have the subject performing the action, take for instance, when somebody says, sorry, I'm going to be using here, if somebody says, Chima wrote, Chima wrote a letter. I apologize for the tininess of the handwriting. Now, when somebody says, Chima wrote a letter, what is the subject of this sentence? This is the subject. This is the verb. This is the object. Now, the subject performs the action. This sentence is in the active voice form. You talk about the passive voice when the sentence, the structure of the sentence is affected. It is affected in the sense that this object will come over here and this subject will go to the back, meaning that the subject and the object will switch their positions. That is why you have it here. It says subject and object switch positions. This is when you say that the sentence is now in the passive voice form. In this situation, the subject is no longer presented as playing the role. It goes to take the position of the object. But take note that the message of the sentence is not affected. That does not mean when we say that the subject takes the position of the object, would that mean that you tell us that letter wrote Chima? No. The communication, the information that is conveyed by the sentence will remain the same, even though the subject and the object switch positions, but the information will still be intact. Now, when you change a sentence from the active voice form to the passive voice form, the tenses are not affected. You still get to know about what tense that sentence is, whether it is in the active or in the passive voice form. Now, the message is not affected. It still says the same thing. If we are to change this, you have a letter. That is what you have here. A letter was written by Chima. This letter has taken this position and Chima has gone back. But yet, because of something that happened here, because of the change in the appearance of this verb, of the verb here, this message of this sentence will not be affected. The sentence will take another form. It takes the passive voice form, but the message is intact. Now, when you talk about the change of a sentence from the active to the passive voice, the tense is not affected. The message is not affected. Now, the subject and the object switch positions, just like what you see here, and focus is now on the action. Here, the focus of this sentence is on who wrote the letter. But a letter was written. Even the way the sentence sounds will tell you that focus is now on what is done, or rather, what was done. You have other examples. This one is in the simple past tense form. This sentence is also in the simple past tense form, even though it is in the passive voice form. Now, when you have, let us say we have a sentence like a sentence that is in the simple present tense form. We have something like he writes letters. If we are to present this in the simple present tense form, you have he writes letters, right? Now, if you are to change that, you simply say letters are written by him. It is still the same thing. The information is still the same. Now, the tense is not affected. The message is not affected. Now, the subject and the object switch positions. If we want to present a sentence like a sentence in the present continuous tense form, so you might have something like Chima is writing a letter. This time around, it is in the present continuous tense form or present progressive tense form, as you may wish to call it. If you are to change it to passive voice form, that is where being will come in. Being. Take note, it is being that you use when you are talking about a sentence in the present continuous tense form and not been. So, Chima is writing a letter. If you are to change it, what you then have there is a letter is being written. The same form of verb. A letter is being written by Chima. Now, when you change from active voice to passive voice, take note, the subject and the object will switch positions. The focus is now on the action instead of on the subject. And again, the verb is normally affected. The verb normally goes to take the shape of the participle form of verbs. Yet the information will not be affected. Like I said, we are going to be talking about this in the live and interactive class that we'll be having tomorrow. I said this class will take place at 1 p.m. tomorrow. We are going to be taking time to explain. That is where we teach. If you do not understand, you ask questions. We do well to explain them. And it is going to appear in a way that I will send a link. I will send the Zoom link into the WhatsApp group. I might be accommodating the first 10 persons to join. I'm sorry, I would not like to take much persons because the gadget I'm using might make it too tiny that I will not be able to attend to everybody. So I will take the first 10 persons to join in. It is going to be free, and this will continue to happen. It is going to be a weekly something every Saturday. Okay, remember, it is free, at least for now, till I begin to complain that the wait is too much. But for now, it is free.